Eat a Peach is the third studio album by Allman Brothers Band, which was released on February 12, 1972 on Capricorn. It is comprised of some studio tracks which were recorded between September and December 1971 at Criteria Studios in Miami, and some live tracks from their breakthrough live album at Fillmore East, which were recorded on March 12th and 13th and also June 27th, 1971 in New York City. Prior to release of this album on October 29, 1971, Duane Allman was killed in a motorcycle accident in Macon, Georgia, so the album was dedicated to him. The name of the album comes from a phrase from one of Duane Allman's quotes. The first two studio albums by Allman Brothers Band, which were called The Allman Brothers Band and Idlewild South, had moderate success, but not as much as their third release, which was the live recordings at Fillmore East, that brought them a lot of attention and made them both artistically and commercially stars. At Fillmore East was released in July 1971, and as it was getting more attention in the following weeks, the band went to Criteria Studios in Miami to record their third studio album in September. The band had worked on 3 songs up to that point before 4 of the band members, including Duane Allman, checked into rehab due to heroin addiction. After Duane Allman's death, the band had a meeting and decided to continue, and they went back on the road. Dickie Betts, as the lead guitarist, gradually became the band leader, and they finished working on the album in December. Even though their original leader had died, but this gave the band members motivation to make this album as good as they could if Duane Allman was alive. Also, most of the songs on Eat a Peach that was recorded after Duane Allman's death was related to the tragedy. The album cover and also the painting inside the gatefold of the record was created by W. David Powell and J.F. Holmes at Wonder Graphics. Powell had seen old postcards at a drugstore in Athens, Georgia, which was a peach on a truck and a watermelon on a rail car. He bought them, and after taking a photograph from a handwriting of the band's name, he cut and pasted the photo on the side of the truck underneath the peach. Inside the gatefold cover is a painting of landscape of mushrooms and fairies. These mushrooms refer to the psychedelic drug. Powell and Holmes swapped duties of painting without any plan and conversation during their trip to Vero Beach, Florida. They painted the art on a large illustration board. The left part was mainly drawn by Holmes and the right part by Powell. Both of them were influenced by Hieronymus Bosch, the painter from Netherlands. When the artwork was finished, Duane Allman was still alive, but the title hasn't been chosen yet. So the album cover doesn't have the title of the album, which wasn't a common trait at that time. The first title that was chosen by Atlantic was The Kind We Grow in Dixie, which was the label of the postcard series Powell had seen in Athens. But band members refused this title. Butch Trucks, the drummer of the band, then suggested the title Eat a Peach for Peace, which came from Duane Allman's response to a writer's question regarding revolution. The album cover later on in 1991 was chosen by Rolling Stone magazine as one of 100 greatest album covers of all time. After Duane Allman's death, some people in the music industry thought Allman Brothers Band is finished and can't survive without Duane Allman. Around the same time, Capricorn Records had separated from Atlantic Records, and Eat a Peach was one of the first Capricorn albums that was being distributed under a new deal with Warner Brothers Records. Dick Woolley, which was the head of the promotion in Atlantic Records, had quit recently and had joined Capricorn Records. When he first listened to Eat a Peach, he was blown away and accepted to promote the album in half his salary. He arranged to have the band's New Year's Eve performance at New Orleans Warehouse live broadcast on radio. The strategy worked, and the album certified gold and peaked at number 4 on Billboard's Top 200 album. During the touring for Eat a Peach, the band members felt lack of presence of Duane Allman, but Dickie Betts convinced them to tour. He practiced Duane Allman's slide solos and added his own twist to them. They played 90 shows in 1972 for the support of the album. Barry Oakley, the bassist of the band, got a severe depression after Duane Allman's death and couldn't play as he used to. So the band needed to replace him with Joe Dan Petty. In November 1972, after a year of struggle, Barry Oakley died in a motorcycle accident similar to his friend. The first song of the album, Ain't Wasting Time No More, was written by Gregg Allman in December 1971 and was released as a single in April 1972. It was written in Studio D in Criterion, Miami, Florida. The song was composed when Duane Allman was still alive, but the lyrics relates to his death and also about the soldiers who are coming back from Vietnam War. Dickie Betts filled Duane Allman's slide guitar parts in the song. Ain't Wasting Time No More peaked at number 77 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart in 1972. Brers In A Minor, which is the second longest song in the album, runs over 9 minutes and was written by Dickie Betts. It's an instrumental piece and Dickie Betts had played a part of it solo in a live version of another song of the band, Whipping Post. They started recording the song in Studio C at Criteria, but the sound wasn't good, so they moved to Studio A, and the difference in the song's pitch is the result of this transition. Melissa was written by Gregg Allman in 1967, before Allman Brothers Band had founded, and it was recorded on December 9, 1971 at Criteria Studios and was released as a single in August 1972. One of the two available demo versions before Allman Brothers Band recorded the song is a cover by a band called The 31st of February, which Butch Trucks, the drummer of Allman Brothers Band, used to play in. Gregg Allman wrote the song when he was at the Evergreen Motel in Pensacola, Florida. The name of the song was supposed to be Delilah, but he changed it to Melissa based on a little girl's name that he saw one night at a grocery store. After completing the song, Gregg and Duane Allman recorded a demo version which wasn't released for 30 years. It was also Duane Allman's favorite song among Gregg's compositions. In 1968, Gregg and Duane Allman recorded another version of the song with the band, The 31st of February, and the whole session was released as Duane and Gregg Allman in 1972. Gregg Allman sold the publishing rights of Melissa and another song, God Rest His Soul, which was a tribute to Martin Luther King Jr. to Steve Alaimo, who was a producer. Gregg Allman didn't mention this song to his band members because he didn't have the rights of the song anymore, as well as the tone of the song, which he thought was too soft for Allman Brothers Band. But a few years after, Phil Walden, who was Allman Brothers Band's manager, bought back the publishing rights of Melissa for Eat a Peach. When Duane Allman passed away, Gregg performed Melissa at his funeral. Mountain Jam, the longest track of the album, has been considered as the band's signature song and has different versions, which runs over 33 minutes in this album and has been divided into two parts. Each part takes one full side of the four-sided record. It's an instrumental song, and the fact that it's been improvised will add even more value to its credit. The song starts with a guitar solo by Duane Allman, followed by Gregg Allman's solo on Hammond organ, and a guitar solo by Dickie Betts. Butch Trucks and J-Mo have a drum duet in the middle of the song, and Barry Oakley continues with a bass guitar solo. And then Duane Allman starts his long slide guitar solo for almost 23 minutes. This means all of the band members have a solo part in the song. The first known recording of Mountain Jam dates back to May 4, 1969 at Macon Central Park. The version that's been included in this album has been recorded in March 1971 during the Live at Fillmore East session. Mountain Jam has some other versions which are even longer, up to 44 minutes. This version has been recorded in April 1970 at Ludlow Garage. In one of the other versions of the song, which was recorded in July 1970 at Atlanta International Pop Festival, Johnny Winter plays slide guitar as a guest musician. Before Allman Brothers Band's first recording of Mountain Jam, Jerry Garcia and Peter Green, alongside Duane Allman, had played together in a jam for Donovan's song There's a Mountain that comprised some parts of the song. Parts of Jimi Hendrix's song called Third Stone from the Sun has also been considered in the composition, as well as a section of Will the Circle Be Unbroken. Grateful Dead has used some references to There's a Mountain in their song Alligator of their 1968 album Anthem of the Sun. They've also played some parts of the Mountain Jam riff during different live performances, including August 21, 1968 show at Fillmore West, on November 6, 1970 at Capitol Theater in Port Chester, New York, and on July 28, 1973 at the Summer Jam at Watkins Glen. One Way Out first was recorded by Elmore James at Baltimore Studios in New York City in late 1960 or early 1961, but it was released in 1965 as the B-side of one of his singles, My Bleeding Heart, for Sphere Sound Records. Then Sonny Boy Williamson too recorded it for Chess Records in Chicago in September 1961 and released it shortly after. 2 years later, in September 1963, he made some changes to the song and recorded this new version again for Chess Records in Chicago with Buddy Guy on guitar. The credit for One Way Out has been given to Marshall Sehorn as well as Elmore James and Sonny Boy Williamson too. Marshall Sehorn was a recording engineer and record producer. But during that time, some producers used to include their names as the composer of the song to collect royalties later on, and Sehorn did the same thing. In 1965, another bluesman called G.L. Crockett released another version of the song with a different name, It's a Man Down There, for the label Four Brothers Records. It had a slower tempo and a softer blues vocal like Jimmy Reed. It reached number 10 on the Billboard Hot Rhythm and Blues singles and made G.L. Crockett a one-hit wonder man. Later that year, Jimmy Reed released an answer song called I'm the Man Down There, which didn't make it as big as Crockett's song. The other bands that have recorded some versions of It's a Man Down There are the Swedish band Melvins, Sir Douglas Quintet, Beatles, and Yoko Ono. The latter two versions haven't been released. The version of the One Way Out in Eat a Peach is a live version which was recorded at the Fillmore East but not from March 1971 session. Instead, it's been recorded on June 27th of the same year. But it's known that Allman Brothers Band have been playing One Way Out in concert since February 1971. The song starts with Dickie Betts' guitar and Duane Allman comes with his bottleneck slide solo. Then Greg Allman adds his vocal. During the song, Duane Allman and Dickie Betts switch guitar licks. This version of One Way Out has been used as a soundtrack in several movies including Martin Scorsese Presents the Blues, A Musical Journey, The Departed, American Made, Almost Famous, Dogtown and Z-Boys, and Lords of Dogtown. Trouble No More was recorded by Muddy Waters on November 3, 1955 in Chicago and reached number 7 on Billboard R&B chart. Muddy Waters' song has been derived from a song called Someday Baby Blues that was recorded by Sleepy John Estes in 1935. During the recording of Trouble No More, Muddy Waters had Headhunters Group as his backing band. They include Jimmy Rogers on guitar, Lil Walter on harmonica, Otis Spann on piano, Willie Dixon on bass, and Francis Clay on drums. Allman Brothers Band first recorded Trouble No More for their debut album, The Allman Brothers Band, in 1969, and the version on Eat a Peach is a live recording from Fillmore East session. Stand Back was written by Greg Allman and Berry Oakley. It's one of the other songs that represents Allman Brothers Band's signature style. Even though in the middle of the song there is a slight guitar solo by Duane Allman, and the whole song has a rich sound due to each band member's contribution, but it relies mainly on Greg Allman's vocal. Blue Sky was written by Dickie Betts and was recorded in September 1971 at Criteria Studios in Miami, Florida, and was released on February 12, 1972. This is the only song in the album that was sung by Dickie Betts. Like most of the other songs of the album, Duane Allman and Dickie Betts alternate between playing the solos. It also has more country sound compared to the other Allman Brothers Band songs. Dickie Betts wrote it about his then girlfriend and later wife. He wanted Greg Allman to sing the song at first, but Duane Allman encouraged him to sing his own song because he thought it sounded like him. It is also one of Duane Allman's last recorded performances before his death. Allman Brothers Band have played Blue Sky live several times both before and after the album's studio version was recorded, and one of them, which was a live on September 19, 1971 concert at sunny Stony Brook, has been released by the band. It also has been covered by a few artists including Joan Baez on her album Diamonds and Rust in 1975 and Frank Hannon, who's Dickie Betts' son-in-law, with Dickie Betts' son Duane Betts in 2018 in a cover album called From One Place to Another Volume 1. Last song of the album is Lil Martha, which was written by Duane Allman and was recorded in October 1971. It's an instrumental song which Duane Allman and Dickie Betts played it on their acoustic guitars. It's also fingerstyle. Originally, Berry Oakley had a bass part which was edited out for this version, but in 1989 was added to in a box set called Dreams. The name of the song comes from a nickname that Duane Allman gave to his girlfriend at the time, Dixie Meadows, who used to wear vintage clothes, even though it's believed to come from a grave that belonged to a 12-year-old girl called Martha Ellis in Macon, Georgia. Gregg Allman and Dickie Betts have performed Little Martha on different live albums, including an electric version on Dickie Betts' 2004 album called Instant Live at the Odeon, a 1974 live album by Gregg Allman called The Gregg Allman Tour. My rating for the album is 5 stars, as well as the AllMusic's rating, both critics and users.